Hello, welcome to LedgerCast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard. I'm here with Josh Olszewicz. Hey, Josh.
Mr. Brian,
How are you?
how are you? Jinx and good.
I'm glad you're good. I am swell.
I'm enjoying this coffee. It tastes different today, I don't know what it is.
Man,
Just something.
it just hits different.
It just hits different,
I already drank the last of my coffee and am really, unfortunately, drinking tea right now because
Wow.
I have not left the house. I don't remember why. I had a couple of meetings. And,
Tea gets a bad rap for some people.
Tea sucks.
Tea's quite diverse. To me, it's more diverse than coffee.
It is diverse, but it's not as good.
Well, if you're in for the caffeine, maybe, but
and the flavor.
But yeah, coffee to me is kind of one note, whereas tea, man, there are so many good.
Look, Josh,
out there.
Josh, yeah. I've been triggered enough this week. Okay. Yeah. So I had my 2 cups this morning, so I'm okay. But I'm normally like a 5 or 6 cups in a day type of guy. So after this call, I will be going to the store to pick up some beans. The number has gone up, Josh. The number has gone up on Bitcoin, and it's starting to follow on Ethereum. Ethereum has been getting wrecked relative to Bitcoin. There's a lot of questions that we've gotten about what's the deal? What's the deal with this move? We're not seeing constant attention on it. What is it looking like relative to the macro landscape? When all-time high, sir? When Lambo? When are we going to rotate back to alts? Those are the types of questions that we're getting. So I want to talk today about the market cycle, maybe some of the stuff that we're seeing in the news, and whether it is or is not impacting things. That's our plan.
Couldn't possibly be correlated, right?
Could not possibly be correlated. For a casual listener, though, Bitcoin is at $15,500 and change.
It's still insane. Like, to say that out loud, I'm sorry. For a guy that started and saw where it was to where it went to where it is now, man, it doesn't feel real. It really doesn't. I know that sounds like cliche, but
once we normalized 10K, 15K was normalized already. What's really the difference? Other than 50% higher, being 50% higher. But we've seen this occur over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, and we blew through the 2019 highs, and now the only overhead resistance, you have to go back to late 2017 and early 2018. I checked the other day. We had roughly 22 daily closes above $15,000 at the top of the previous market cycle. For those of you who weren't here at the top of the previous market cycle, or you were brand new because you are the retail plebs that came in to buy the bags, it was different then. People were freaking out about what Bitcoin had done, about what crypto had done broadly. And this time it's just chill on a relative basis. Like, I don't even know if they're putting Bitcoin news on TV, but they're certainly not doing like the tickers on CNBC constantly like they did, or how to buy Ripple at $3. Like, none of that stuff is occurring. So from a pure sentiment point of view, we are in the early markup phases. We are not in the euphoria phases. Yes, no, wrong, maybe. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, that's 100% correct from what I'm saying as well. There's nothing
purely sentiment based.
There's nothing about anything with Bitcoin right now. It's just doing its own thing.
Yeah, obviously, all our metrics have flipped bullish now. Like, all the stuff we talked about with regards to the trend.
The election's obviously taking a lot of airtime around the world regarding anything, but that's having rippling effects. If you look at Dixie, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but it's all turning at Millhouse. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Well, the biggest narrative on the legacy side of things to me was how much money was on the sidelines waiting for some resolution. And what we saw was a day or 2 days before the election, whatever it was. I think people just started to front run getting back in, like no matter what. And like, I literally saw any possible result is bullish. Like I saw the case that people made for it.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is that even though it looks like there's going to be a lot of wrangling or whining, like the end result seems pretty clear, and it's going to be another divided government. We don't have to get into all the politics, but the White House looks like it's going to shift, and the Senate looks like it's going to stay. There was no real mandate or anything like that, but legislatively, I don't know that we'll accomplish a ton in U.S. government. But people talked about, here are the impacts if we have a blue sweep or a red sweep, and this was in the middle, and the market, the S&P went up like 3% or something 2 days in a row. So I think people just wanted to get back in no matter what, right?
Yeah, I think like we've been saying, like all that matters is the stimulus. All that matters is doesn't matter who's sitting in the White House in the Oval. Nobody cares at this point. It's just
From an
people know
investor
that,
standpoint, yeah.
right? The market knows a stimulus of some kind is coming, whether it's fat, skinny, medium, whether it's targeted, whether it's more checks, whatever it is going to result in a devaluation of the dollar.
Yep.
And stocks, equities, or metals, whatever, are going to continue to rise. And Bitcoin is a part of that.
Regular chat participant, Crypto Jack, says any case equals stimulus equals DXY down and Bitcoin up. And that's it. That's the show. Like
I think it's just inevitable.
And the technicals align with that strongly. Like that dollar move up now just looks like another short squeeze, and we're back on the verge of new daily lows. We're not on cycle lows, but if you look at the weekly, I mean, this thing just got hammered by the 20-week moving average. And every time I see, in the past, what is this, 6-7 years, when there was some kind of rejection like that off of that 20-week or really any kind of thrust candle like this in general, it's not stopping there. We look like, today's Friday. We look like we're about to make a new weekly low below 92.30 or so, 92.50. And it looks like this dollar is just going to get wrecked, because the one thing we agree on in America, and this impacts the world globally, is that we're going to print some more money and we're going to send out some more stimulus and all that. The exact shape of it, sure, we're seeing that manifest in different ways. Like there's been this Russell 2000 trade, for example. Like, some of these low cap, like steel stocks or copper, some of those were getting a run up while the Qs didn't. Well, then the election comes in and the Qs like teleported back nearly to all-time highs. Like everything goes up. So we're seeing everything go up and the dollar go down. And Bitcoin is playing as a high beta version of that. And that's good for Bitcoin.
Has the alternative to not printing more money even been discussed?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it has either. Like, I don't even think that's in the part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's just how much and to who. Will it go to retail? Will it go to just impacted parties? Will they try to decipher those things? No matter what, it seems like everybody's on board with printing.
So you can be Democrat, Republican, American, foreigner. You can be anybody.
Foreigner.
And it's not going to matter. We still have COVID. We still have stimulus. We're still way out from any sort of resolution with a vaccine. And I like the meme that COVID's going to go away after November 4th. Oh, no, I assure you, it is going to get much worse before it gets better based on the numbers that I'm seeing. So buckle up, kiddos.
Yeah, the real economy is not there at the same time. Like this is the dollar's economy, like the assets, like what are we going to value? But the economy is not necessarily there. There's a lot of warnings about that. Maybe that could create a downward cycle if it became like a liquidity crunch or something like that. But we seem to be seeing an acceptance of people still want to be invested. You know, there's not this like fleeing of all assets. So it seems like there's going to be some upward bound trades somewhere, and so far the evidence is pointing towards everywhere.
Well, where are rich people supposed to put their money right now? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. If it's not stocks, where else? The real estate? I don't know.
I don't think many are looking at it as saying like, let's leave it in fiat.
Well, yeah, I think that's the last option. Like we see, the art world is exploding too. Not that that's something we ever talk about, but just based on things that I've been reading about.
You feel like a broken record saying that we're due for a run of inflation, but like this seems like the early realization that we're aiming for inflation, right? Like inflation is better than the alternatives according to the powers that be. So that's why we Bitcoin.
Yeah, is Bitcoin mooning or is the dollar crashing?
I don't know. I saw somebody talking about Bitcoin relative to the Turkish lira, and it's like in super price exploration, all-time highs. And I mean, in that example, I don't think Bitcoin is mooning. I think it's the lira crashing, but the dollar's not there, obviously. The dollar is the shiniest turd out of the bucket, you know, like it's, but it's still a turd. Like there's other things that people want. And, you know, again, in the chat, like a Pokemon collector's edition is better than the dollar to a lot of people right now. So we're seeing a lot of speculation around anti-dollar stuff, including Bitcoin.
And it's not just U.S. fiat;
it's all fiat,
right? And that's going to play a massive role too. Again, it's like something. I think it's stuff like we all know to be true, but something we maybe take for granted is that this isn't just like a U.S. thing. You know, it's like I'm looking at the odd chart, BTC odd. I saw it at 20K the other day. It's at 21.3 right now. BTC CAD historically has just been insane as well. If I can't even pull that up. I don't even know what exchange has that anymore. The Canadian dollar.
Yeah, I don't. It was like a Quadriga thing.
Yeah, it was a Quadriga thing, but that's got to be insane as well.
DV says it's very close to price discovery against the Russian ruble. Like, yeah, I mean, all of these fiat currencies are weak because all of these banks are printing, and it's a good time to be a Bitcoiner, y'all. You're listening to this. You're in crypto. What we want to do is we want to increase our Bitcoin by trading Bitcoin and altcoins. And I am not exactly looking at this and thinking, you know what, I'm looking for shorts. Certainly not. Because
well, we said that 1 or 2 weeks ago. I remember the exact phrase of, I can't look at this in a bearish way. Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
I can't try to find stuff that's bearish about this other than it looks like we rising wedged up and we.
Yeah, I mean we're running hot, but that doesn't mean that you short it.
Right.
I mean you're showing 2019. I just popped on mine, like looking all the way back to 2017. There's a weekly close at 16.1 or so, and then there's the all-time high weekly close at like 18.8, 18.9. Those are the two levels that are left on a weekly basis. If you want to point to levels, you know, some people will even say levels 3 years ago don't matter. You know, we need to look at things like what you have in front of you, like what's the current trend look like? What's the, you know, what's our rate of progression? Like where are we due for a drawback, et cetera, et cetera. And to answer Trogdor's question, are we early? It's very meme-ish to say, but I don't think we're in the first inning, but we're not in the eighth either. You know, like I think we're starting to see some run up from large money participation, institutional participation, and we really haven't seen retail join in yet outside of the retail that was already here.
I think it was you that was talking about the parabolic nature of this on the daily. It's clearly hastening.
Yeah, I've got it on this weekly chart. So this is this diagonal or the dotted parabola. That is a parabolic move that would lead us to all-time highs by February, and we're significantly outpacing it. And this is this is essentially my 33K by July.
Oh, my heart beats for you.
Except it's faster. It's 33K by May, basically, like late April. That's the pace that we are outpacing 33K by July.
The seasonality makes sense. I know you might not be the biggest fan of that seasonality stuff, but this is Q4 doing Q4 things, right? Like this is classic.
We like to moon
November,
in Q4.
December. I wonder what effect. Do you think they'll push taxes back again this year with Biden?
Maybe. Yeah.
Because I wonder what effect that actually had this year, and what effect
I
it'll
think
have next year.
I think it had a lot of effects. I mean, not having to do a extension, which most people don't even understand the concepts of. Yeah, I think it had a big effect. I think deferring student loans had a big effect. And internationally, there were similar things like this that essentially gave people better capital, better cash flows, even if their income was down. And then you send them money on top of it, and they're ready to spend. Like it creates a risk-on environment, even though the economy is kind of crap, the underlying components. Like maybe this is a house of cards, but it's our house of cards, you know, like it hadn't fallen yet.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I don't know what to say other than it's doing what it's supposed to do. You know,
Bitcoin
like
is.
Bitcoin is like an all-time high by the end of the year. Not impossible.
Yeah, that's running real hot, but it's not impossible.
I'm not currently leveraged long. Like I said last week, I was out at 13.2 just because I got scared that we were going to retrace to 12 or something for election. But
I am leveraged long, but not Bitcoin. I am like 98% Bitcoin. Like I'm basically all Bitcoin, have been since 10K. I've not had spot altcoin exposure. So I've been leaning on longing altcoins on margin with Bitcoin collateral. So I'm actually long Ethereum again and finally snagged a decent entry.
so do you long the USD pairs then?
Yeah, so I long the USD pairs on Ethereum or whatever else. I'm also long DOT a little bit right now.
Ugh, gross.
But
DeFi is so wrecked. I do those scanner videos every week, and
yeah,
it just gets. It's been just nothing but bad the past 3 weeks for DeFi.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of US dollar bottoms were printed yesterday, and I think they'll float relative to the dollar for a while, even if Bitcoin keeps going up. Maybe they get more wrecked relative to Bitcoin. I don't know. In a vacuum, though, I think Ethereum looks amazing against the dollar. Like we've talked about this for a long time, but the weekly looks like it's ready to make a new weekly high if it continues this momentum above 430, 435. And I think 450 and even 500 look like a pit stop.
I mean, who's been calling 750 since the beginning of the year?
You have.
I'm not going to name names, but
I'm not going to say, I'm just saying.
It's still it's one thing to say we think it's going to go here, and then it's another thing to like trade it and obviously sit through it, right? But
it's been hard to trade. Like I've gotten chopped up on Ethereum trying to trade it because I mean, you look at the number of weeks where it's wicked back down into supports and has hinted towards potential drawdowns. You look at it, Ethereum's got relative strength to other stuff in DeFi, for example. Like, so you're like, okay, is this going to follow the rest of DeFi or is it going to stay strong? I can't look at like this ETH 2.0 stuff and maybe some DeFi stuff bottoming, people looking to get back into some of those things. I think it's all very bullish for Ethereum. I think Ethereum's going to do pretty well. And I also think the Bitcoin pair for Ethereum looks like it's bottomed. If I look at it on the weekly here, just my yellow box that goes back to December 2018, it pierced it and went back above it. The daily 200 did not hold, which made me pretty bearish on Ethereum, but then it created this daily bull div and huge response right off of it.
That's why I don't think ETH BTC is tradable, really, honestly.
It is. It's tough, but I don't think it's toppy. I think if anything, it's bottomy from a price action perspective, and it's giving me an allowance to trade it on the dollar pair again. I don't have to hold Ethereum to do this. I can just trade it on the dollar pair.
Yeah, exactly. I've been saying that for forever, you know.
But it spiked into the levels that, like, there was this divergence, right? The daily support at the moving averages that I follow was higher than the horizontal. Now the horizontal has been tapped and it may reclaim the moving average. And that to me is kind of this nice blend to be able to have confidence in the dollar pair for markup, because now it's sitting here with the initial thrust up and it might move up above and really go for it. Like, you know, have another $100, $200 move, which I want to be in for that.
I was waiting for this bullish TK cross, right? Cloud guy. Waiting. It happens. Price goes down. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm a failed trader.
That's where I got stopped out. I stopped myself out at like 383. It was brutal.
Yeah. I didn't believe, Brian. I didn't believe in the cloud, and every time I don't believe in the cloud.
So you didn't long this?
And I say this every time this happens.
You didn't long it?
I say it every time. I'm
Josh.
like, why am I not paying attention to my own system?
No, you didn't long it?
No, I got out of even my my set stuff. I got out. I'm back in as of yesterday, but I got out of it because it looked like 380 was done. It looked like we were headed to 350 at least.
It wasn't easy to be in. I got stopped out, or like I did these small trades where like I had a little win, and then a little loss. And the last one where I had levered up decent enough, which was wrong because then it made me take the loss from like 390 to 383 or something like that. And so I got out before I went to bed, and then I woke up and it was, you know, but like almost 400, and I was like, dadgummit, like that was the buffer I needed to have more confidence in that position. So this time I got in, and I'm still in. I'm sitting there. The freaking plan, Josh. We talked about when Bitcoin did this at like 10.6, and we were talking about how long are you gonna stay in, how are you gonna do it, and you're like, I'm just gonna hold it for the 28 days that I'm allowed to on Kraken. Well, guess what? That was yesterday. You know, like.
Yeah, I didn't want to hold anything through the election. I didn't know what was going to happen.
I know.
That was another part of it.
I know, but I'm saying if we're plan followers, then you just got plus 50% on margin.
Says the guy who wants to trade on an island with no, like, if I was on my deserted island with just the chart, I would have been fine. I would have said, man, look how rich I am now.
Josh, are we coping? Are we coping right now?
Coping with what?
Our lack of exposure and positioning.
I guess, I don't know.
I'm feeling okay now. Like if Ethereum tanked relative to the dollar while Bitcoin did that yesterday, I would have been sad. But that Ethereum followed, I'm okay. I've recovered. I've had spot exposure throughout this. I didn't take $1 out for the election because I was pretty confident in the market moving up.
Yeah, I almost never moved to cash for any reason, but it's the leverage stuff that not being in that hurts, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I've got a nice margin win under my belt now, and I'm holding. I want to see the weekly markup. I think this weekly ETH chart looks insane. Like, I could be wrong. It could retrace, and I could have to, you know, do some kind of stop out close to break even or something. But I think it looks ready to mark up to me. Like, it looks ready. It looks ready to haul.
It's the 4th ever bullish TK recross above the cloud for ETH on the daily using these settings.
4th ever.
That is ever. Yeah.
Wow.
Super strong.
That's cool. Hey, all right. So that's our general thesis. We're going to get to some alts in a minute. However,
what do you think about this this wallet with 69K BTC?
That's what I was about to.
Look at that. We're simpatico. Look at that. Look at that. I got this great chart. You talk about it, but I got this great chart. I'll pull up.
Yeah. So 69,000 roughly Bitcoin moved, and it was debatable about what it was at first, but now it looks like it was funds that a hacker somehow gained access to, and then the federal government somehow tracked the hacker because of this, and then gained control of the funds, and now I guess they're in government custody.
Hacker.
So that's weird.
It was a hacker, right? It wasn't the government. Like, why would you move these coins on election day? You know,
I have
that's the weirdest part about all this stuff.
that it happened on election day.
You've had these coins there, they've had these coins in custody, arguably since God knows when, years potentially, and they're waiting out for election day to move them. Like, that's just bizarre.
Maybe they're just trying to do it under the radar.
It's bizarre. It's beyond bizarre. You know.
I don't know, but for the first time when there's a ton of funds like this, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I think there's a lot of potential buyers for those coins. You know, like, I could imagine a lot of people with interest in those.
I agree.
And it doesn't strike me as overly bearish that the government has control of a bunch of coins, because I think they'll just be auctioned off, and that creates a buyer, and it's probably a holder, like someone that's looking at it with a long-term investment thesis.
Yeah, I think it's it's different this time, right? I think it's slightly different than it was. This is a chart from somebody on TradingView, Joe Boo. He was following this in.
Can you zoom in on that?
2015. Yeah, I'm trying. It won't let me. There we go. He was paying attention to this in like 2014, 2015. Not just him, but lots of people were. When we were talking about like supply demand, and the other part of this is the Gox coins are set to be released eventually, right? They're not going to be in the custody of whoever forever.
Right.
So that's another part of this. Obviously, we've had another halving since this chart was last updated, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it's just blanketly bearish as it has been historically. It's slowed progress of any bullish trend. It's hastened progress of any bearish trend. It's not as much as it was previously, BTC wise, but it's way more USD value, notional wise, right?
Yeah.
It's $1 billion, right? Like that's a lot of money, you know?
I just feel like if you're buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin off the Feds, you probably just want to custody that for some. Like, what advantage do you have unless you're getting a significant discount and you make a ton of money purely by then dumping it on the open market?
It's if your mindset is it's different this time, which it very well might be, then I agree with you. It doesn't matter at the end of the day if it's different this time, because the market's just going to absorb it. It's going to get custodied or whatever, you know, and that's going to be it. We're not going to hear about it. And maybe that's best case, because it won't be individual sellers. Like, I think the Mt. Gox case is the worst, because you have a bunch of people getting a windfall who are going to sell. I think obviously it's good that they're getting their coins back, but for the market, I think that's worst case. Even though logic doesn't really follow that. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting.
These coins were connected to Silk Road initially. Yeah.
There's some theories that, again, it wasn't a hacker who had these coins. It was the Feds who actually took custody of these coins back in like 2012. And yeah, I don't know. The timeline is super interesting.
Well, I agree with the Arctic one. I think a bunch of companies are going to bid on this government auction and use it for some treasury reserves. Like, if you're somebody taking this seriously, like you see Square and you see, you know, Square's the big name, but some of the others, and like, you might look at $50 million and say, this isn't worth my time. But if you say, hey, here's $1 billion up for auction, you might step in on that before it goes to all-time high, and you're looking at the landscape and you got plenty of money to spend.
That's another meme about the market cap. Like, when the market cap's big, companies will finally come in because they can actually buy some of it. I think that's partially true. Like, obviously, if there's a massive block of coins for sale,
Yeah, I don't think that's always been true, but we have talked
No,
about
it's
this
not.
repeatedly. Bitcoin is entering the narrative globally for macro assets to be on watch and how it relates to everything else. And that is a trend shift that if you fail to recognize, then I think you can just miss out on what is possibly next. And like I said, I'm not ready for embracing this $500,000 per coin gold parity type of conversation, but I'm ready to accept that it's a macro asset that's real. That doesn't mean it has to be the size of the gold market yet, or maybe ever. But it could be. It could be larger than gold someday. Like, it's a new world, man. Smartphones change the world. Why can't money, why can't stores of value change over time?
Yeah.
God, this is
Well,
top things the way I'm talking.
I don't think so. I think it's like we're again. It's just like I feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over again. But we're back above the weekly cloud. The weekly cloud looks insanely bullish. Everything I'm looking at, I cannot be bearish. I cannot find a single thing. I really can't.
All right. Well, I want to show you a chart,
The
and I
fact
want
that
you to.
sentiment is so quiet, it's like eerily quiet. Even though
Yeah.
a lot of people are viewing this as price discovery, because last time it was just
It was
we had spoofy and name your conspiracy theory here regarding why we were where we were.
and tons of embedded market participants were already out by then. Like, it was new money buying the last of old coins.
And Square just said they made $1 billion in revenue last quarter. Is that right?
They increased their net revenue by $1 billion.
Okay.
They beat their earnings by like 50%, and Bitcoin continued to be a high earner for them, which is just. This was tweeted to me. I don't remember where it is. I'm sorry, but somebody was talking about how the access to Bitcoin is like multitudes higher than it's ever been. Like
Oh yeah.
2017,
100%.
someone like me, it's like, how the hell do I get this? Well, I got to go create a Coinbase account. I got a KYC and I got to do all this crap. Now you do it in PayPal, you do it in Cash App, you do it in GBTC, you do it in half a dozen different ways that are mainstream that you already have access to. People can FOMO Bitcoin way quicker. You do it in Robinhood. People can do it way quicker now than they ever could before. That
Yeah,
has to be a huge deal.
the questions I'm getting aren't where do I buy Bitcoin? It's how much should I buy? Should I DCA? Should I lump sum? Like those are the questions I'm getting. So I
Yeah.
100% agree. It's not about access anymore.
All right, I'm going to show you a chart, and I want you to tell me how much
Hold
is.
on. One last thing I'll say about
Okay.
BTC real quick. The buy zone for me, like buy the dip zones, are always going to be the weekly 20 SMA and the weekly Kijun. Anything that gets anywhere near any of that stuff to me is massive, massive buy. So right now that's 11.2 to 10K. If we get anywhere close to that, that is just going to be a massive shove on leverage for me.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, that also could signal, like, if you say, oh, I want to buy the dip at like 14K, that might be a trap. You might have to be patient for when do you buy, but there are some home runs, there are some fat pitches relative to prior bull markets that you could rely on. And we've talked about that 20-week SMA a ton. The Kijun, bids on the Kijun, et cetera. But you can do the mid time frames and the high time frames, right? Those are the high time frame dips. You're always going to get runs back to something like the Kijun. These momentum strategies work pretty darn well when you're in this type of, ramping market. So look at your moving averages, look at your pullback areas, your fibs, things like that. Find your pullbacks, and then if it fails that pullback, start to look at the higher time frame pullbacks, and that's how you don't end up a bag holder and don't end up liquidated.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like in 2017, 2016, it was like 50 to 100 days between the dips. So
yeah, which is like a couple of months of running.
yeah, definitely requires patience, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this chart, if I showed it to you, it's curve BTC weekly. Would you believe that it's up 18% in one day?
Looks like Zcash. It's the ghost of Zcash past, is what that is.
Yeah. So obviously,
How can you buy that? Like, what's your end game with that? Like, a
dude,
mean reversion?
I stared at this for 30 minutes yesterday, wanting to buy it at 240 sats or whatever. And I would have made 20% like instantly. I wanted it so bad, but I couldn't bring myself to it. I've delayed and I've delayed and I've delayed doing this, but
Trading is like farting. If you have to force it, it's probably poop. So,
um,
if it's not obvious, I just
I
say nope. Next chart.
I think the case is makeable. It's not guaranteed. I think you can make the case that relative to the dollar, a lot of these bottomed yesterday.
Well, Wi-Fi actually bounced surprisingly. Speaking of
Wi-Fi
relative to
was
the dollar,
Wi-Fi was hilarious because 7,500, really close to the bottom. Someone tracked down a Wi-Fi short where they borrowed WBTC in order to go sell their Wi-Fi. Like it was this, supply borrow short that they did, and people calculated what their liquidation would be, and it was around 10K. And there was literally a Telegram group for short squeezing this person. So it was like 300 Wi-Fi or something. It was a lot of money. So it was a short squeeze in the truest form. And the question for me is this just a big short squeeze? We'll see more downside on all of these relative to Bitcoin, or was this a bottom? I think they could have bottomed relative to the dollar, but not bottomed relative to Bitcoin. And so now they do some accumulation or who knows what. I don't think you have to buy into this first gigantic green candle, I guess is my point. Although we've seen some of these move massively off of their absolute lows. Like we definitely had low time capitulation. I mean, Uni went up 50% in 2 candles. So we saw low time frame capitulation. I just don't know. Like, I'm not buying that there. Not after that. I'd rather be in the big cap, like Ethereum play that just looks like a much healthier chart overall,
Yeah, I think people confuse mean reversion for bull market
Yeah.
and bearish exhaustion for bull market.
Right. And these met bearish exhaustion parameters, which could mean they've bottomed, but they're not in bull markets. Like you're playing a high risk, high reward game. It's a game. I'm willing to play that game sometimes, but not right now.
Wi-Fi did hit the levels, the TA levels anyway, as far as where it should have gone on the lows. It did bull dip though at the bottom. If you look at
yeah.
If you look at
that
RSI,
I like that last little one, the little one, not the big one.
Well, that's the difference between you and me.
Yeah.
But no, it looks fine as far as where it bounced, why it bounced.
I was looking for Wi-Fi like 6 or 7K, so it didn't quite get where I would have been really compelled. But that's okay. I don't have to be in on all of them. My problem is, and maybe others are different, I don't want to be in them right this moment either. Like, if I got in on some of those bottoms and I made 20% in a day, you think I'm sticking around? Not really. I'm going to enjoy my single day move.
No, everything looks like crap. Sorry, altcoiners. BAT BTC looked like it's ready for lows.
They just need to manifest themselves into some longer term patterns in my mind.
Look at this brutality. 66% in like 50 to 70 days.
The old coins are on the struggle bus, man. The top
ADA BTC. Absolute brutality.
The top movers were like the new stuff, like Aave, which is the old Lind, I think, right?
Yeah.
Off the bottom, this one went up 57%. But this looks like a brand new chart because they changed the token. So, yeah. The old coins did not go up 20% per candle. I mean, Curve sucks and it's up 17% today. These were some big moves. DeFi perps are up 11% today. DeFi perps is like 100 coins, if I remember correctly.
BTC dominance was surging. I doubt it's surging as hard right now, but why can't I find that? It yeah, it hit like 67.
Yeah, this looks like mean reversion on BTC dominance from a parabolic up move. If I'm looking at like low time frame,
We're getting a death or a golden cross on dominance.
yeah,
Almost assuredly,
this looks
alt
like
season is over.
this looks like a bull market in dominance to me.
Oh yeah, big time.
Which, again, this says, and I want to finish on this maybe. This gives us the confidence to be in Bitcoin. You know, like Bitcoin is going up and it's strong. And even if you catch a bottom on some of these other ones, like I think you just got to be a little more careful with them. There's another thing that I want to bring up. I did a thread about this on Twitter, but one of the things that I'm considering strongly, I was here for 2017. I paid taxes and it sucked. There are going to be tax implications for people that made money in DeFi and have made money on these Bitcoin and Ethereum moves up. And they're going to have to consider short-term capital gains considerations. I don't know what other people are like, what situation they're in, but I moved most of my DeFi stuff into Bitcoin when Bitcoin was at maybe like 10K. So now there's this $5,000 or $6,000 increase in the price of one Bitcoin that if you were to go buy an altcoin becomes a taxable event. So you've made $5,000, $6,000 per Bitcoin to go buy an altcoin. If you underperform Bitcoin, not only did you underperform Bitcoin, but you also forced yourself into this tax event on the gains that you had in Bitcoin. Whereas if I hold out until the end of the tax year, then I can reduce my potential tax burden by 50% of the price of one Bitcoin or more, depending on what Bitcoin goes to between now and the end of the year, and delay paying taxes on those gains for at least another year. That's a huge, huge difference. Not to mention, if Bitcoin goes up further, the taxes I'm already going to owe on DeFi stuff, say one Bitcoin is going to go a lot longer in terms of, like, it's going to go a lot farther in terms of paying the capital gains from DeFi stuff that happened earlier in the year. Does that make sense, Josh?
A little bit. So you're saying get into BTC now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying get into BTC now. I'm saying if you're like me and if you've been in BTC for a while, like if you've not been really touching other coins on spot, then consider the tax implications of selling one of those coins by buying another coin. And if you don't strongly believe that it can outperform Bitcoin, then you may be creating a needless tax event that you'll have to pay taxes on, and they'll be due much sooner than if you just wait till the end of the year. If you wait till January 1st.
I see what you're saying. You're talking about long-term cap gains versus short-term?
No.
Right?
No.
Right?
I'm talking purely about the unrealized capital gain. So currently, if you've not sold a Bitcoin, let's say you made enough money to go into and buy one Bitcoin. If you haven't sold that Bitcoin since you made that prior move at the end of the DeFi season, 8 to 10K per, like say 9 or 10K per Bitcoin, and Bitcoin goes to 20K, if you sold that one Bitcoin to buy altcoins again when Bitcoin hits 20K, you just realized a $10,000 capital gain that you owe taxes on. So you realized, say, a $3,000 tax bill just on that one transaction. You better make more than $3,000 on what you're trading in an altcoin to justify it.
Yeah, I got you. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yes, I will echo the tax. The sticker shock of taxes for me in 2018 was enormous.
Yeah, and it will be again. A lot of people made a lot of money in DeFi and are making a lot of money right now in Bitcoin. And every transaction you make at the end of the year, I mean, we felt this in 2017. Every transaction you make at the end of the year is going to have an enormous impact on your tax burden for the coming tax season. And if you can delay that a year, you're going to reduce your tax implications for 2020 significantly so that you can go a whole nother year trading with that stack and not having to pay those taxes yet. And you're essentially spreading it out, the tax event, to the next year, which is always a good thing. Now, the ways to mitigate this are to keep your Bitcoin in Bitcoin and then look for alternative methods to find exposure in altcoins. For instance, if you use a Kraken or some of Binance, I think has this as well, like FTX, your collateral can remain in Bitcoin, and then you can take a trade on, say, ETHUSD with low margin, similar to as if it was on spot, and now only your margin trade is taxed. Your Bitcoin was not sold.
Yeah, the worst part
that's
is
my speech. I'm not your accountant. I'm not a financial advisor. This is how I'm looking at this market because I've had to pay a lot of taxes and it hurt, and I want to limit my tax exposure this year.
Worst part is when the tax question interferes with the trading, because the last thing you want is some other third party force influence on how you're making your trades, and it's like it's so brutal to have to actually think about that stuff.
I agree, it sucks. Like, it really sucks if you're staring at something and you're like this is how it was yesterday. I was like, I'm staring at Curve or whatever, and I'm like, I want to buy this shit coin. And then it's like, yeah, but what do I need to make this worth it?
Yeah.
So in that situation, I think, I don't know, but I think if you already have, say, something in WBTC, you can lend the WBTC, borrow USDT, and it essentially works the same as margin, like I talked about, because you're not selling the WBTC. I've heard even converting WBTC to BTC is a tax event in the US, so that sucks. I'm just saying, if you got stuff in spot, if it's been there a month while this run up happened, consider your tax implications because it is mid-November.
Yeah, that goes back to the like-kind conversation. It goes back to the custody stuff conversation. It goes back to,
there are things I'm considering because I know the difference, and it can be a significant percentage of your portfolio that you then have to cough up and not trade and build with. And like, let's take our one Bitcoin example. Well, if you have to take 0.3 Bitcoin and pay taxes with it, now you have 0.7 Bitcoin to deal with. Well, what if Bitcoin triples in that time? Like, you just coughed up a lot of money because of taking that transaction sooner than you needed to.
The part that I hate the most is that to pay taxes, you cash out crypto and then you get taxed again on that because
yeah.
So it's like this perpetual cycle of paying taxes.
It's not great. Paying taxes is a challenging process anywhere, but I don't know anywhere that's as bad as the US in terms of the implications for mundane things.
Yeah.
So, things to consider. Maybe y'all are not in my boat, but even if one or two listeners is in a boat similar to mine, then it's worth considering. I am considering this deeply. I also think it'll affect the market cycle. That's the other reason I'll bring this up, and I apologize for ranting for so long about it.
Well, that's the part of the seasonality,
Yeah, I think it plays into the seasonality. 2017, Bitcoin topped. Did Bitcoin top in December, or was it literally like January 1st? Maybe it was December 30th or something like that. It was right around Christmas. It topped, but then money hammered into alts in January as more and more people were realizing those gains in the new tax year.
Yeah, it was definitely a compounding effect. I mean, I was right there with everybody. I was selling ETH to pay taxes. That was just how it was because I had to, right? Like, most people don't have like massive amounts of fiat if they're crypto people, right? Anyway.
Yeah, people are, they're finding their exposure in crypto, and that's where their money is. So yeah, so Bitcoin topped December 17th. So a lot of money did realize its way into alt sooner. But January 6th was kind of the next top. But the big moves, if we go to dominance, back to that same time period, I think the big altcoin moves were in January. Right? Yes. Yes. Dominance peaked January 13th. So people were really moving into alts in January. And I think we could see something similar here where maybe some alts are bottoming and stuff now, but I think the push up in alts could be as people feel more comfortable getting out of Bitcoin in a new tax year. I know I'm not planning to take more substantive positions in altcoins until then.
I mean, I don't look at it from a tax perspective. I just look at it from a rotation perspective. Like Bitcoin takes a move, people say, where else can I rotate to make some money? All of a sudden it goes into Doge, and all of a sudden Doge is 100 sats. And all is right with the world, you know?
I totally agree. If it's a fat enough pitch, I'll make the move, but I want to make like 30% or more on that trade, and I want to have a high confidence capacity to make that.
I just can't think about it. Maybe I'm too dumb to think about it that way.
Maybe I'm too dumb worrying about it. I don't know.
If I start thinking about it like that, I'm just never going to take a trade ever again in my life, you know? It's like
we're just going to be stacking sats. Welcome to Tales from the Crypt.
I have to make this much money on this trade to pay taxes for the last trade. Like, just forget it. Just
yeah.
You know,
well,
go flip burgers at that point.
In legacy markets, people do think about those things, but
that's beyond me. I'm not smart enough.
For us, 30.
I'm a simple cloud man. I'm a simple cloud man. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth considering our tax implications towards the end of the year of a successful trading year.
Of course.
And that's how I'm approaching it. I could be wrong. If the pitch is fat enough, I'll hit it, right? Like I'll still go for it. But it's got to be a fat pitch. And that's what's going to make me personally question any old move into something. You know, like I have to have a real good reason. A real good reason. All right, I hammered that a little hard. Josh, do you have any other thoughts before we go?
Not really. I mean, everything's moving in the expected direction, up and to the right, you know?
Yeah.
Unless you're an altcoin pair, then you're just getting absolutely slobber knockered right now.
Unless it's ETH-BTC, which I think looks okay. It's not like I'm screaming for it, but I like the trade. I like it. Oh, I like it enough. I'm willing to hold ETH if I have it. Put it that way. Bitcoin wise, I mean, I think we could easily get it above 16K on the next weekly candle, 16, 17. It sounds, I mean, that's only $500 now. We could do it tomorrow. We could do it tonight.
I would be more comfortable with the pullback as most people would be. But
yeah, like if we move to mid 14Ks on the next weekly candle, kind of fill in the previous candle and then work our way back up, that's fine. I'm fine with anything from here. I'm just a hodler, just a humble hodler.
It's an honest wage or whatever that meme is. I think most people, when you're looking for the pullback, don't get it. So it's this weird like push-pull thing where I really don't want to chase this, but I really don't know if we're going to get an opportunity to buy the dip anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not pushing in for margin longs on Bitcoin. I'm holding a margin long on ETH, but ETH is lagging. So
yeah,
just got to figure out what works for you.
It's fair.
But we aren't shorting. Or if you are, maybe it's a hedge or something. But I'm not even worried about hedging until
33K. I'll say it for you. 33K. So that's when the hedges turn on for me. The hedge button is off until 33K.
So you're not even worried about like hitting pause at all-time highs, like at 18, 19?
I mean, I think there'll be a reaction. There's always a reaction, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I want to pull the trigger on a margin hedge, you know. Long and strong.
The last time I sold anything near the all-time high, I was severely disappointed. So I'm just gonna let it do its thing this time.
Cool. There you have it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll answer a couple more questions about specific coins in the post show. We appreciate you being here. You can rate and review this show on iTunes or other platforms. We love iTunes reviews if you can give them to us. We appreciate that. We'll talk to you next time. The easy river
so tight I can barely